Elevate. We are in week 4 of our series, Canceled. And in this series, we've been talking about how when people disagree or when we disagree with people or have different beliefs, it has led to this phenomenon called cancel culture, where we attempt to get others on board with canceling that person or organization by trying to make them look bad or kind of diminishing their influence. And today, I don't want to talk about how we typically do that by trolling somebody's comments on their YouTube channel or celebrity drama or the people we just love to hate to stir up drama. I want to talk about when we have legitimate reasons to cancel someone. Now, whether it's on TikTok, in our families, or in our circles of influence at school, there's never a shortage of people that we love to hate, especially when we feel there's a good reason for that hatred. When someone hurts us, it's tempting to cancel them by throwing some shade, talking some trash, maybe we try to dehumanize them or belittle them. Or we might even try to take revenge. And this is complicated because when we're hurt, of course, we want to stick up for ourselves and hold people accountable for their actions. But God also calls us to forgive and show grace rather than seeking revenge. So how do we balance accountability with grace and forgiveness? Does forgiving someone mean pretending like the hurt never happened? When do we need to seek justice? And when do we need to just let something go? Now, last week, we talked about this tension between David and King Saul. And we focused mostly on Saul's envy of David. And in case you need a quick recap, here it is. So Saul was the king of Israel, but David had been chosen by God to be the next king. Saul liked David at first, but he eventually became incredibly envious of David. And because of his envy, Saul tried to kill David, multiple times, literally gathered his troops and tried to go Hunger Games on David, tracking him down. David had every right to retaliate, but here's what happened instead. When Saul was actually tracking David down, he stopped and went into a cave to relieve himself, to go to the bathroom. And unknown to Saul, David happened to be hiding in that very same cave with some of his men. And David's men start telling him, hey, you should sneak up on Saul while he's going to the bathroom and kill him. And rather than kill Saul, David crept up and cut up off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. And then David actually felt bad about doing it, so he restrained his men from taking Saul's life. And when David had the opportunity to take revenge and let hate guide him, he chose to let Saul go instead. Now, that doesn't mean they were 100. That doesn't mean that David was tight with Saul now and that he wanted to hang out with him. But David led with love by extending mercy instead of revenge. Now, they never reconciled and pretty much promised to stay away from each other. Now, like I said last week, it's helpful when reading Old Testament passages to look ahead to the words of Jesus and see what he had to say. And here's what we read in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 38. It says, "You have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. So as he often did, Jesus flipped the script on the world's wisdom about love and hate. Instead of telling his audience to love those who love them and hate those who hate them, Jesus challenged them and us to try something new, to love our enemies. And although David lived many years before Jesus spoke these words, he understood that God wouldn't want him to return Saul's hatred with more hatred. Now let's talk about this phrase, turn the other cheek, because I think it's often misunderstood. Now, when Jesus said this, he didn't mean never stand up for yourself or for others. Let other people walk all over you. No, that's not what Jesus meant. Jesus had no problem verbally defending himself. Jesus often got angry at people who were cruel and hurtful. But Jesus never sought revenge or was cruel to others or escalated a conflict because his pride was wounded. Here's what I think Jesus did mean when he said, turn the other cheek. When someone attacks, hurts, or lashes out at you, don't be overcome by anger. Don't plot your revenge. Don't escalate the situation. Don't react without thinking. Respond wisely instead. See, many people think of Jesus only as a kind, gentle, peace-loving man, but Jesus was a revolutionary. Jesus upset both religious and political leaders of his day. They all wanted him dead. Jesus' enemies would often try to provoke or trap him so they could have an excuse to arrest him, but Jesus knew better. And when Jesus said to turn the other cheek, he wasn't telling us to just get over it. He was telling us to strategically choose love instead of hatred, because love changes things. So who are your enemies? Who are you tempted to hate because of the way they've hurt or treated you? Who have you hurt out of a desire for revenge, and how can you make it right? How can you stop the back and forth exchange of hatred and retaliation between you and another person? How can you strategically choose to love someone that you want to hate? See, the world needs us to model a new way forward, the way of love, not hate, the way of Jesus. And there's 4 challenges that I want to invite you to do this week. The first one is forgive. Forgiveness isn't something that we do for the person who hurt us. It's something that we actually do for ourselves and God. Whether they've asked for our forgiveness or not, we can still choose to let go of bitterness toward the people who have hurt us. You may not be ready to fully forgive that person today, and that's okay. When we choose to forgive, we're committing to a journey of healing ourselves. And that doesn't mean the relationship will be repaired or restored. The second thing I want to invite you to is to notice. We all need people to model for us what compassion and love look like. But the good news is that these examples are everywhere. We just have to pay attention. Find someone who you think models this behavior well and ask them about it. Get curious. Ask them how they process their emotions or how they can harness their anger and put it to the side. The third thing is defend. We've talked a lot about what to do when we've been hurt, but don't forget that other people are being hurt all the time. You might notice someone being bullied at school, or you might begin to explore deep and systemic problems like injustice, racism, and inequality. And if you were David being hunted by the king, you would have wanted someone to defend you. And we can do that for others. The fourth thing is pray. The things we've talked about today are difficult. And if we want to choose love instead of hate, we're going to need a lot of help. We have to learn to pray for those who've hurt us or are hurting others, just like Jesus said. It's hard to hate someone you're consistently praying for. And as we close, I want to challenge you to pray for the person you're most tempted to hate right now. Or maybe the person that you feel at odds with, and ask God to help you choose love and extend mercy. See, God is inviting us to lead the way in setting the example on how to love the people that we don't want to. If we have the courage to step into that, I can imagine the smile on God's face as we see how it changes us, how it changes those we directly influence, and how it ultimately transforms the world around us.